and you're locked into a very special Easter episode of the Anilujah podcast. My name is Josh, and we're delighted to be back with you once again this week, making that intersection between faith and animation and delivering those redundant analogies you've come to know and love. And I was kind of thinking back this week where like old wise tales and kind of like fables and little like superstitions, things that we believed as kids growing up and maybe still do today as adults that aren't necessarily true. And Rebecca and I both had memories of these. We picked out one in particular that we were told this by either our mom or dad or both parents, and we believed it up into, well, for me, till adulthood. Rebecca may be a little bit less. What was yours?
Yeah, the first story that I thought of was about my grandparents, actually. It wasn't my parents who told me this, but actually, there's some stories for my parents too. But the one I'm thinking of is my Papa Joe, my grandfather. He has these little peppermint candies everywhere. That's just like a signature Papa Joe thing. And he called them, while we were growing up, Poppy Mints instead of peppermints, because we called him Papa Joe. And for the longest time, I really thought that that's what they were called, Poppy Mints. So this didn't happen to me. This was my youngest sister. She actually got into a real argument with someone at school.
Oh, she took it seriously.
She took it really seriously. Eventually, we all kind of figured out that they were peppermints and not Poppy Mints, but that was funny. But yeah, I've had other things that my dad told me when I was a kid. Now I was really little and I would chew my fingernails. Wow. And he told me that if I chewed my fingernails and swallowed them, that I would have worms growing in my stomach.
Ew.
Yeah. And my mom was so mad at my dad.
Oh, I bet.
Because I couldn't go to sleep, of course. I was like, I don't want the worms growing in my stomach. So, yeah, thankfully, that was not true.
That's funny. For me, I can only think of one, at this moment. So, when you get hiccups, and there are many different avenues or many different remedies that people tell you how to get rid of hiccups. Oh, tell one of your friends to scare you, but, make it unexpected. Like, you won't see it coming. Other people say, hold your nose and, breath and, for at least like a minute or whatnot. That'll get rid of it. Drink water. So the first remedy I always did, and sometimes it would work and sometimes not. My father, this is to tell you how upset I was because I'm not calling him bad. My father said, hey, I have a trick that can help you. Go ahead and get a glass of water just like you did. Get a butter knife. Stick the knife into the glass, take the cup, and balance the handle of the knife on your nose and drink the water. And I don't know if there's like a placebo effect or whatever, but it worked. It worked until I realized what an idiot I looked like. Now, granted, it did work for the many times that I had done it whenever I had hiccups. And I don't know if I ever confront my dad or if my mom let it still that, he just did that to joke around with you. But I was so upset because I believed that until my 20s. And I even recommended that remedy to other people.
Make them look silly too.
A little bit of a payoff, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is Easter weekend. At the time that this episode's come out, it is Good Friday. So very happy Good Friday to you all.
He is risen, right? Oh, okay. Wait.
Well, hold on. Yeah. There he is. There you are. Yep, he is risen. And you got that as a what you call a happy from your mom.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if anybody else in their family does this, but our family has always had these little like random presents that are called happies because it makes you happy to get a random little gift.
And who wouldn't be? Who
Yeah,
wouldn't be?
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, my mom last week or earlier this week, she's like, "I've got a happy for you for Easter." Apparently she had gone to Bucky's and got my nephews some things for that are Bucky's themed for Easter, and she got these shirts as well. The shirt. So I was like, "Ah, yeah." And what's the classic greeting, Josh? When I say he is risen,
He is risen indeed.
indeed he is. Yes, I remember learning that one from an early age is like a common. I think it was a very Southern Baptist thing though to do. I don't know that if it's other denominations that do that. Actually, let us know in the comments like what is the typical Easter greeting where you are? Is it the same? He is risen. He is risen indeed. Or is there something different that you say? I'm curious. And tell us what denomination you are as well.
Because, like, I think that phrase is generally the same, but maybe different connotations based on denomination. But I think throughout many denominations, it may be equal. Before we get into today's episode, if you have followed our socials, we made an announcement, and it's a very sad announcement, but not altogether all sad. And that is because Rebecca is leaving the podcast, not forever and not, she's just stepping down from her co host role and will kind of be in and out of
An
the pod.
intense
Yeah,
co-host role.
right. Kind of as like a guest co host or a collaboration. So I think I likened it to Blue's Clues. If you remember that show from Nick Jr. when Joe left for Steve left for college, and Joe comes in like, "Who's Joe? Who is this poser? Bring Steve back."
I don't think it'll be quite like that, but
No new sheriff is coming into town. But we just wanted to communicate that because that will change a little bit the appearance of the podcast. You may have noticed that some of the styles had changed on our posts and also the animations as well. We're going to have a new intro starting in May. So May is going to be when the podcast will be back in full force because we'll be changing to a bi-weekly upload schedule.
yeah, and I'm taking this time to step down from a more intense co-host role just because I've got a lot going on with school. It is really kicking my butt, honestly,
well,
right
it's
now.
requiring more of their time, more of their commitment. And so after a lot of discussion, we felt this was the best course of action. But the good news is I've already got a few guest co-hosts, some who have been on the podcast previously, who will be helping out from time to time as well. And because I mean, I can talk to myself for about an hour, but it's always nice to have somebody with you to have a discussion. Because no matter how hard you try, you can't have a conversation between two people and you be both of them.
I mean, you could, but not for that long.
No. So as I said, this is our Easter episode, and in the past we've done different Bible-based movies. We did Prince of Egypt, I think a year or two ago. We also did Just a King of Dreams as well. For VeggieTales, we did Jonah. And I think that was during Easter, yeah. This Easter season, we saw a brand new animated biblical movie. And 2025 seems to be the year of animated faith-based films or media in general.
We're here for it too.
We've had a Gabriel and the Guardians. You guys saw our pilot review on that. If you haven't, we're going to go ahead and link that down in the description. We also have on Prime Video, there's House of David, which is the story of David. There's also going to be Light of the World. That's going to be coming out in September. It's about telling of Jesus' life. And just like that movie, that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today. but it is called King of Kings, and this is by Angel Studios. It stars such voice actors as Jen Cummings, Una Thurman, Pierce Brosnan, and a whole host of others. And we got complimentary tickets from Angel Studios, so we figured, why not? Let's just see it. I was pretty apprehensive to seeing it at first, just because of the animation style, and it looked very AI-esque. But then I saw the whole team working behind it, and thought, okay, there may be something here. Rebecca, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, it was kind of like looks good, you know. I mean it's another story of Jesus's life around Easter. You know, how many times can we do this? Not that it's not a great story, because it is a great story, but like, come on, how many different ways can we tell the same story? So that was a little bit like, okay, what are we getting into?
Right.
And like you, the animation style, it was very like Disney Junior. I'm thinking like
Oh, Doc McStuff.
Doc McStuffins.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's what popped in my head, but like anyway, yeah. So those were my thoughts about I wasn't quite sure leading up to it, but I was interested in going and seeing what it was all about. I did like that it was a different perspective. It was like a story being told by Charles Dickens. I did find that interesting before going in. I thought maybe it would offer a different perspective.
And that was one thing about this movie. Now, Rebecca, you had mentioned that this is told through Charles Dickens, and usually we see it told by like an apostle or a Roman guard or something like that. So this would have been like in the 1800s. Now, was he a Christian or a man of faith?
I think he was. Yeah, he so the story is based off of his book that he wrote. Let me get my trusty notes here. Let me get that. So it's based on the book that he wrote called The Life of Our Lord. And it's a book about Jesus of Nazareth. And it was written for his young children, just like it shows in the movie. He wrote it between 1846 and 1849, but it wasn't published until 1934, 64 years after his death. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I don't know. And maybe it was just truly was for his children. And he didn't necessarily mean for it to be, um, you know, published necessarily, but rather his retelling, if you will, of the story of Jesus, which is really personal. I like that.
But yeah, so we'll give our initial thoughts. About 10 minutes in, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it because I'm like, okay, this is geared towards kids, but it's an important movie. I think, it still offers some credibility. It should still be entertaining. I'm glad I gave it more of a chance. What this movie does is it doesn't focus just on the birth. It doesn't just focus on the crucifixion. It kind of gives you a snapshot of Jesus's whole ministry.
Yeah, you go from the nativity scene all the way to the crucifixion, but appropriate for little eyes, which is nice, without glossing over any details, but still appropriate for little eyes, which I thought was really good. Again, we don't want to tell kids the truth, but like also they don't need to see Passion of the Christ level of Jesus being beaten.
Right.
And like you, Josh, when it first started, those first 10 minutes, I was like, is this going to be okay? I don't know about this. We start the movie off with Charles Dickens. He's doing a dramatic reading of the Christmas Carol classic. And he's in a theater doing this sort of one-man show, dramatic retelling or telling of this. And then behind the stage, the wife brings the 3 kids in, and the cat shows up for some reason, and they're hooping and hollering and just being crazy kids in the back behind the stage. And in the middle of the show, he's towards the end when Scrooge is talking about, he's like, "No, spirit, I will not change." And anyway, he stops in the middle of it, and because the kids are all rowdy and loud. And the whole time I was thinking, what? And then there's this like whole conversation between him and the kids and like reprimanding the kids when he is literally in the middle of a show. And I was like, why in the world did his wife even bring the kids to the show to go behind stage? They're kids. Of course they're going to be loud. Of course they're going to play and do random shenanigans. Like, what did you think was going to happen? I know this was trying to like move the story along and like provide context and everything, but I was honestly really upset. That's probably my biggest gripe about the movie in general.
Yeah.
But then it got better.
Yeah, just kind of like the storyline, but not really the artistic choices or anything like that.
No, it was beautiful. It was really good. And like I said, it got way better. The story is Charles, he goes home, and one of his kids, the youngest, I think, was really having a hard time. And the wife found the manuscript for the life of Jesus that he had written, which we just talked about. And she was like, I think it's time. I think it's time we tell the little boy, I forget his name, but the little boy about the
Was it
story.
Wilhelm or William or something like that?
Possibly. I think the cat's name was pretty close to that too, though.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but because the little boy loves the story of King Arthur. He is all about King Arthur. And so Charles comes up and he's like, actually, the story of King Arthur was based on the story of Jesus. And he is the King of Kings. And he goes through and he makes it really fun and interesting for his son, who loves King Arthur and adventure and all of this. And it was really good. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I was definitely swept up into the story with the kid.
Yeah, the story overall, fantastic. And as I mentioned beforehand, a lot of the other Easter movies and during Christmas time as well will just focus on one aspect of Jesus' life. And I love that this movie, King of Kings, did not do that. It expanded upon it. I also love the art style as well. This had, again, as I said earlier, kind of reminiscent of like AI generated characters, but I could tell that there was a lot of detail and care and talent that was behind all these characters. And you had like some blocky characters, kind of like rigid edges of it, and you have very round characters as well. So I love the kind of push together of those two mediums.
Yeah, there was a lot of different body type representation in the movie, which I appreciated. I thought that was like, well, yeah, of course, not everybody was thin and athletic. There were people who were different shapes and sizes. I will say all of the apostles looked pretty similar.
And
They were all pretty blocky, pretty Minecraft looking.
That is what it kind of reminded me of.
Right. And then you have Jesus.
It was a very lanky.
Well, he was just your typical European looking Jesus. But it was very interesting to see this specific style of the art for the disciples and then to see Jesus. They didn't go together. Yeah, they did not. It seemed different. It would have, I mean, if we're being very nitpicky, it would have been nice to see a darker skin tone on Jesus and maybe not so pretty. Really handsome, because the Bible talks about him being just really average, just kind of an average guy. average name, average guy, which was the whole point of Jesus coming to earth, is that he's one of us. He's just like one of us. So anyway, if we're being like really detailed, that was not something that like took away from the story at all. But yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that I was thinking of when we were watching the movie is the blocky characters and kind of like different. It kind of reminded me of claymation almost, kind of like Wallace and Gromit type of stuff. A little bit, but not too much into it. I also love that they included the part of Jesus' story where he got really angry when he walked into the temple, and so where he flips over tables.
Yeah. It was unsatisfying, if I'm being honest. I wanted him to rage.
One more grit.
Yes. Come on, Jesus, flip the tables.
Well, again, that's a PG-13
Can't show too much rage. Yeah, I love, like you were talking about, Josh, I loved the comprehensiveness of Jesus's life and the stories there. They included so much, like the flipping of the table and the woman putting the oil on Jesus's feet, and he kind of snapped back at one of the disciples, and he was like, "Hey, leave her alone. Come on." That was really good. That was really good.
Yeah, we had all the major miracles they did. The curing of the blind man, raising Lazarus from the dead, the leopard, the woman caught in adultery.
The leper, you mean?
Sorry.
It wasn't a leopard.
Oh, leopard. The leper.
Shifters? What's happening?
Yeah, the leper. Yeah. And if you guys are interested in reading those stories, we'll actually put those scripture references down below as well. These are great miracles that he performed.
I do wish that like it wouldn't have made much sense for this movie because of how they did it. But I really would love to see a movie that shows the suffering Jesus went through, crucifixion on the cross, the waiting period between when Jesus died and when he rose again, and feeling what that's like, and then have him rise again from the dead. And like, what was that like while he was here for, how many days was he here? I don't remember. The number 500 is stuck in my head, but I think that's the number of witnesses that saw him ascend into heaven. But I would love to see a story that focused it on like that.
Yeah. Because in the film, in this movie's version, it was pretty like instant. It's like he died and I was back.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and they led up to it though. Like Jesus very specifically said, if you tear down this temple, in 3 days, I will rebuild it. And of course, he's talking about him dying and being dead for 3 days and rising again. So it was good to hear the lead up to that and the promising. But yeah, I wish there would be media out there that would really focus on, I think that would be an interesting angle, focus on the waiting, focus on the waiting, and then what happened when Jesus returned. That's not really done. We focus so much on the crucifixion and the suffering of Jesus, and that is incredibly important. But like, he's alive. He is risen. And what is that like? What was that like for the people who saw him rise again? And if I remember right, he continued to do miracles. When he came back, he talked to people. What about all of those conversations where just like randomly showed up talking with people when they realized who he was after breaking the bread with him? They realized who he was and poof, he vanished. That's incredible. Incredible. Like, let's see some of those stories. Those are really cool. And then the ascending up into heaven and, Acts 1:8, right? Go out unto the world and make disciples.
Yep, the Great Commission.
The Great Commission. Yeah.
There are so many more aspects you could have included in this movie regarding like Jesus' life and, or as you were saying, that waiting period, like what were the thoughts of people and the individuals like the king, the prophesied king, is dead, and now what are we to do? He was a miracle worker. He was our leader. So that would be somebody needs to make that.
Somebody, please.
Yes.
Somebody with lots of money and connections. We need a good production, though, you know?
You could call it waiting for the king, something like that.
Ooh, there you go. Solid. We got it. And yeah, that is a whole other movie. What they included in The King of Kings was perfect. Like that was the right amount of story. It took you from beginning to end and was engaging.
And like all heartwarming and touching movies, Rebecca cried at a few moments. There were a couple of tears welling up in my eyes too, particularly towards the end, because it was going back through the miracles, and it was the POV of the little boy experiencing them. And when it said, "Save me, Jesus," it's like, yes.
Oh my gosh, that was such an emotional moment where he was like, "Oh, it's me. It's me that Jesus was healing. Now I can see, I can hear, I can, be alive with him." I'm getting chills just like thinking about it. Yeah, and it was good. It was definitely cried in that point. There was a moment too, and maybe this is like uniquely me, but there was a moment where the guy who was paralyzed, they made it, first of all, and his friends lowered him through the roof so that he could see Jesus and be healed. I thought it was interesting. They made a point to say that the man was paralyzed, but also had a stroke, and like brought that sort of medical knowledge into the story, which was even, I thought, more powerful. But so like his friends, how amazing his friends were to lower him into the room where Jesus was. And for whatever reason, it was just like, because Jesus was talking about your sins are forgiven. And the Pharisees were there. They're like, who is this person saying that he could forgive sins? That's ridiculous. Jesus was like, oh yeah? Yeah? Well, what's easier, huh? What's easier? Saying your sins are forgiven, or get up and take your mat and walk away? And then, of course, he heals him and he walks away. But for whatever reason, that just really struck me as like remembering that my sins are forgiven, and that he has given me the power to, because of his life in me, to get up and to walk away and to just be in the world, that I am not paralyzed. I can move. And that was, for me, really powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the woman caught in adultery moment where they're like, you can read the stoner is, and it's all right, Jesus. So what do you have to say? So, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Have any of you not sinned? And I don't know if he said this, but I thought I heard him say it. He said, "Oh wait."
Implied. Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah.
Just the emotional part, like the stones dropping, and
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, and then he turns to the woman and he's like, "Woman, where are your accusers?" And they've all left, because they realize that everyone has sinned. Everyone has sinned. That is why we need compassion in the world. There's a time for calling out what is wrong, I think. But I think it has more to do with the posture of your heart, which is such a weird Christianese thing to say, the posture of your heart. But like your intentions. What are your intentions when you call out someone's sin? Is it in love, or is it in judgment, like the Pharisees in that moment?
Yeah, I thought the Pharisees were really well done and really well portrayed.
They
in this
were.
movie.
I thought so too.
I know it, like, it's not like the point that they were villains.
They were good villains.
Yeah,
They were very good villains.
They were good. Yeah.
Yeah, they were written very, very well. And of course you had Jim Cummings was one of the Pharisees, right?
Jim Cummings was one, and he was also the blind man too, I believe.
Okay. Well, he was really good as a Pharisee because he really had that vitriol in his voice of like, who is this Jesus? Ew.
Because the way that I knew, well, because I watched the interview that he did like on the red carpet for the premiere. And I think the Pharisee, you can hear like his voice that he's doing the voice of like Pete from like Goop Troop. So that's how but it's not as low or as that Pete is. That's a little different dialect. So I thought that
Pierce Brosnan in the
Pierce Brosnan was Caesar, I think.
Caesar. Okay, he sounded familiar. Caesar sounded familiar, so I bet you're right. I bet that is him. Yeah, there were lots of really recognizable actors.
So would definitely recommend King of the Kings. And if you're searching for this on IMDb to get more information about it, make sure it's like 2025 because there's actually another movie named King of Kings called the live action one. It was back in the 1960s. It's actually narrated by Orson Welles. So check that one out so you can have both the animated and the live action. And this is in theaters currently. I think it will be throughout April. Because it's from Angel Studios, I don't know if there will be a shorter run or they will last more than the month of April and go into like the end of May.
It's done really well so far in the box office.
Yes, so
which
that's
I'm
one thing.
so happy about for them.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to mention. I saw an article that is the biggest animated box office premiere in terms of revenue of any animated faith-based movie.
Really? Wow. That's fantastic.
Now, again, that's saying a lot and not saying a lot at the same time, just because there's not many to compete with.
Yeah, animated faith-based films. That's a
just
pretty
because
niche.
there's not many of them.
This is a really good one, though. I gotta say, yeah.
And you'll laugh, you'll cry, it'll touch your heart. You'll get to hear the same voice of Christian Chenoweth at the end if you stick around for the credits.
Yeah, you should. You should for sure. I liked that. I liked that this was not your usual Easter animated film. It makes it stand apart for me.
When you said at the beginning of the episode, where okay, how many times can we do this on another Easter? And it's like
another soldier for the
yes,
princess.
yes. I just about to say that. But I mean, it does feel like that. But this brought in a fresh, new perspective. I wasn't bored with it, so again, highly recommend. Before we end this episode, Rebecca, I want to know from you, since you'll be leaving as the permanent co-host, what have been some of your favorite moments, some of your favorite episodes that we've done? And Rebecca has been here for the past 4 years, so the whole time of this podcast. I know that I've done like some solo episodes from the majority of this year so far, but Rebecca has been an integral part of this podcast. And this is why it's called Anilujah and not Antichrist.
That would be me. My doing. I have loved so many moments of being on the podcast as a regular co-host. It's been a wonderful journey to be a part of all of this. And I feel like I'm like stepping away forever, but I'm not. I'll be here in the background. I'll just be focusing on, schoolwork and stuff. But I have loved so much being able to spend more time with Josh. Of course, these conversations that we would have normally anyway, than just sitting down in front of a camera and having those conversations, and but then being able to connect with you all, the listeners and the people who watch our podcast. It has been so much fun to build a community with everyone here and to share laughs, get to know you, and just build those connections. I have really enjoyed the guests that we've had on the show. As far as like favorite moments, I think my favorite thing about the past couple of years, honestly, has been the Joseph King of Dreams episode.
Still our number one most listened to episode.
So funny to me. What's funny to me is that the behind the scenes for that episode before we recorded, I was really intense at that time and I wanted to go over the Bible story, and I was doing like a deep dive Bible study into the story of Joseph, and Josh was like, "Come on, we need to record. We got to do this." And I was like, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready to record. I don't feel prepared enough." And so I was a bit put out when we first started recording. And then it just turned out to be such a fun episode. You made me laugh with the Pharaoh phrasing joke. And it was really fun. So it was funny to me to see the just being upset before recording, and then during recording it turned out perfectly fine. Obviously it was good because so many people have listened to it now. So that was one of my favorite memories.
Well, again, you were then an integral part to the podcast as the permanent host. And again, she's not going away forever.
Pop up every now and then. I'll be back.
Absolutely. But we want to ask for your encouraging words and prayers as Rebecca is getting closer and closer, taking her final classes, going to start practicing an internship a little bit down the road, to be that counselor and influence so many people and help a lot of lives out there. If you like this episode, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and ring the bell for notifications so that you are updated every time that we post a new video. Until next time, keep those halos shiny and stay holy, my friends.